Welcome to another Acumatica tutorial. My name is Zach Meyer, and today we're going to be taking a look at generic inquiries in Acumatica 2020 R2. So a few updates to the generic inquiry process have been released as part of the R2 update for 2020, and we're going to see how that has simplified the process of making a generic inquiry. So we're going to begin by going to our generic inquiry page, which is found in the customization under the profile heading. Otherwise, we can use our universal search as always to quickly navigate to the page. Now, to start creating a new generic inquiry, we're going to give it a name. So for this, we'll call it 2020 invoices over $10,000. Now we're going to check to make it visible on our UI, and then we can save it and start selecting the tables that we're going to be using to create our inquiry. So we're going to need to pull in our invoice table, and we can navigate down to our AR invoice table here, and we'll go ahead and save it again just to add that. Now there's been two major changes that have been made to the generic inquiry process. The first one being this add related table button here. So before, you would have to add a second table, just as we did for the first one, select it from here, and then once you added the second table, you would navigate over to the Relations tab here, and you would set up the relation. You would have to pick your parent table and the child table, and then define the fields that pair up the two tables. So for example, just to kind of show what this process looked like, if we picked our invoice table, you would then have to pick a data field from the table that would match up. So say it's the account ID for both tables. So if you wanted to pair up an invoice with a customer. So doable, but again, a little bit more of a clunky system. So it has been simplified in 2020 R2 to allow you to add a related table automatically. So what it does is it goes in the system and it picks all the different tables that are linked to AR invoice, and it shows you the field that links them. So because we want to link a customer table, we see customers selected right here, and it shows us that the B account ID is the field that links them. So we can select it and add it. And it does all the work for us. It inputs the customer table, and then here we actually see the link, minus these extra ones that I threw in. But here we see our AR invoice with our customer table. It fills in the inner join automatically, and it then links our parent and child field, and it does show us right here that it was called customer ID in the invoice table and B account ID in the child table. So even though they weren't named the same field or same ID, it was able to pick and link them. Next, we're going to move on over to our conditions. So if we want it to be invoices that exceed $10,000, we're going to find our doc amount, and we'll have it exceed $10,000. And then we're also going to want to select the date so that we only are pulling invoices from this year. So we'll do our doc date. And then if we check this from schema box, what it does is it goes into the system and sees that it's a date format. So that allows us to type in an actual date, or if we click the drop down, it opens the calendar view. And then it gives us some little code, some fields over here to select from, one being year start. So we can actually select that one pretty easily. And now if we had it greater than year start, it would be any invoice from January 1st through today's date. Now once it becomes 2021, it would automatically reset because it is the year start. Now if we wanted it to, let's bring that back in. Now if we wanted it to be within this year only and not just this year and later, we could switch it to between year start, and you can use this value 2 to provide a second field and do the year end. So two different ways to pretty much get the same values, but we'll just stick with the greater than year start for now. All right. Now our next step is going to be going over to our results grid. Now what this does is select the columns that are going to be displayed in our inquiry. So this inquiry is essentially just going to provide us with a report view of selected data that we've picked out. So we're going to first want our invoice number, which is our reference ID, or reference number. Now, if you're ever creating an inquiry and you don't know what the data field is called, there is an easy way to figure that out. So we're going to navigate over to our invoice form, and we'll open up in a new window for now. Pick a random invoice here. And once this opens up, we're going to see in the top left, it does say reference number, so that would be a good indicator that that's probably what the field's called. But in some cases, that's not always true. So what we can do is go up to our customization in the top right, inspect our element, and click on it. Now this is a really easy way to see the table that it's pulling from, so our AR invoice table, if we didn't know what table to select at the beginning of our generic inquiry creation, as well as the name of the data field, which is ref number. So that is a really easy way to determine what the field is called and where it's coming from. So for example, if we wanted to figure out what our amount is, that's how I got the Curry Arig doc amount field. So now we'll go back to our inquiry. So we have our reference number. We're also going to want to pull in, let's do the date. And we're also going to want to supply the customer who is linked to the invoice. So we have to switch the object to the customer table, and then we'll do the account name. And then for one more field, let's do the doc amount again. Now before Acumatica 2020 R2, to view our inquiry and to make changes, we would click this button at the top. It would open up the generic inquiry, and then typically you would have to edit the generic inquiry to make any changes. So it requires a lot of back and forth to edit and make changes and play around with it to get the generic inquiry to look exactly how you want it to. Now in Acumatica 2020 R2, they have simplified this process, and using the sidebar over here, there is now a preview button. So this opens up an extra panel here, which shows us what our generic inquiry currently displays. So here we see reference number, date, customer name, and amount that we've selected. Now let's say we don't want it to be called reference number, maybe we want it to be called invoice number. So what we could do is we can click in the top left of our table, add in our caption column, and that's going to allow us to change the name of our column. So we can call it invoice number. Now if we save it, our preview instantly refreshes to show us the latest version of our generic inquiry. So now we see it reflected the change, and it shows that we have 23 pages of results. Now again, really easy to continuously update that preview. So let's say we changed it and we wanted it to be 20,000 instead. As soon as we save, that preview is going to instantly refresh for us. Alright, but we'll keep it at 10,000 as we've named our invoice, or named our generic inquiry. And now we see that it's displaying all the information we were hoping for, everything looks good. So now we can go ahead and add our generic inquiry to our menu if we wanted. So how we would do that is we would navigate to whichever module we would like to add it to. So let's say because our invoices are in our sales order module, we'll add it here. So what we're going to do is go to the top right, and that's how you would add your generic inquiry to your quick menu. But as we can see here, it's not showing yet, and that's because we haven't added it to the menu itself. So what we're going to do is go down to the bottom left and open the configuration menu, and then edit the menu. So now what we can do is we can add a menu item. So what we can do is we'll start searching for the name of our inquiry, and we see 2020 invoices over 10,000. So we can add and close it, and now we see it appears under the inquiry section. Now if we go ahead and exit our editing, and we go to our quick menu, it's not showing. So that's again how we go to that gear icon, add it to our quick menu, and exit. And then we have our inquiry here. And then if we click on it, it'll open up exactly the inquiry that we've just created with all the different pages of information we have here. So that is a quick overview of how to create inquiries in Acumatica 2020 R2. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to the Mayor Group, and we would love to discuss it further. Thanks for watching, and we'll have more tutorials coming soon.